Okay. I want to say welcome to everyone to our 2024 application process. And Lisa Hanson will begin the
Yes.
meeting today.
All right. Thank you, Rachel. Welcome, everybody. This is a beautiful morning, and we are so glad you're spending some time with us today. I'd like to take a moment and just introduce the program that is under review today. On behalf of CultureWorks, of course, it's my pleasure to welcome you officially to the 2024 Community Arts Grants panel meeting. Community arts grants provide general operating support to organizations that enrich and inspire the Dayton region through world-class performances, exhibitions, and acclaimed educational programs for all ages. The funding for this program comes from CultureWorks' community-wide fundraising initiative, the Campaign for the Arts. As stewards of community funds and in keeping with our commitment to transparency, CultureWorks relies on a grant panel of knowledgeable community members to evaluate applications for community arts grants and make funding recommendations. At this time, I'd like to introduce today's panelists and staff. This year's Community Arts Grant panelists are Aaron Culp, Director of Philanthropy at Kettering Health Foundation; Gregory Changa Freeman, writer, photographer, and president of the African American Visual Artists Guild; Linda Hoffman, retired from the Veteran Foundation; Aaron Smith Glenn, associate professor of art at Central State University; Colleen Ryan, retired from the Veteran Foundation. Now, unfortunately, Colleen cannot be here in person today, but she has graciously recorded her comments as the primary reader for Discover Classical. We will begin that review by playing her recording, and her comments will be included in the summaries that Rachel sends later this month. And you've heard Rachel's name, you've heard from her, but we are so happy to have Rachel Evans-Need join the CultureWorks team as interim director of grant making. She started working with us transitionally for about a month, and she's been officially in the position for 5 weeks, and we are thrilled to have her. She is doing a great job. And the panel discussion will be led by Rachel. Providing logistical support will also be Rachel. But we would also like to thank this year's financial reviewers. That was Dave Stacy and Jim Coles. They supported the efforts of the grant panel by reviewing applicants' financial materials and providing a recommended financial health score for each application. Now just a bit of an overview of the grant making process. In the weeks leading up to today's meeting, panelists reviewed applications independently and completed initial scoring using an established 100-point scoring rubric. Today's meeting allows them the opportunity to provide valuable and specific feedback to applicants and to hear other panelists' perspectives before finalizing their scores. Panelists will make their final scoring determinations by the end of today's meeting, and applicants must receive an average score of 70 points out of 100 to be eligible for funding. To determine grant amounts, final scores will be input into a funding formula, which also takes into account the number of applicants, each applicant organization's budget size, and the amount of funding available through the 2024 Campaign for the Arts, which ends June 30th. All applicant organizations will be notified of their final scores within a week following the panel meeting, and they will be notified of their funding amounts in July, following the close of the campaign and approval of funding recommendations by the CultureWorks Board of Trustees. Now, at this time, I'd like to hand things back over to Rachel Evans-Need to explain the structure of today's meeting.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the 2024 Community Arts Grant Panel Review. During the public portion of today's meeting, grant panelists will discuss 10 applications for the Community Arts Grant funding. These applications are divided into 2 categories. The general operating support category is for organizations with annual budgets between $500K and 10 million. And the community arts development category is for organizations with annual budgets between 100K and 500K. The purpose of today's meeting is to provide panelists with an opportunity to hear each other's perspectives and for organizations to hear specific feedback about their applications. Attendees should keep in mind that today's discussions will move quickly. However, panelists have conducted a thorough review and initial scoring of applications over the course of several weeks prior to today's meeting. To ensure that there is sufficient time to discuss all applications, panelists will not be able to address all areas of each application in their comments, but they will focus on the primary strengths and areas for improvement. Applicants and other attendees may only observe the meeting and will not be permitted to interact with panelists or to provide any additional information during the review process. Prior to the panel meeting, panelists were asked to identify any conflicts of interest with applicant organizations. Panelists do not score or discuss applications from organizations with which they have a conflict. The panel deliberations will proceed as follows. Panelists will discuss 10 applications, one at a time, for up to 15 minutes each. At the beginning of each discussion, any panelist who has identified a conflict of interest with the applicant organization will be temporarily removed from the meeting. I will then call on the primary reviewer, who will begin the discussion by presenting the strengths and weaknesses of the application based on 3 scoring categories, which, if you're an applicant, are familiar with you: artistic and cultural vibrancy, community impact and engagement, and organizational capacity. Once the primary reviewer has concluded their remarks, I will open the floor to the other panelists to add comments and discuss. After all panelists have had a chance to comment, I will draw the discussion to a close, and each panelist will have a moment to adjust their scoring and take notes as needed. So just as a reminder to everyone here who is attending as an applicant, what you're seeing right now is not the final score as much as it is the first meeting after everybody has made their preliminary scores. Based on their discussion, the reviewers have the time to review their comments and their final scores for your organization's application. There will be a short break in the middle of the review of general operating support applications and a longer lunch break prior to the review of the community arts development applications. Once the panel has discussed all applications, we will enter a closed session as panelists, at which time the attendees will be asked to leave. During this closed session, panelists will have a final opportunity, as I said, to revise their scores before submitting them to CultureWorks staff. As a final note, the public portions of today's panel meeting are being recorded, and a recording will be available on the CultureWorks website, cultureworks.org, within a week. For those of you who are applicants, I will also email that video to you, that recording to you, and you'll receive summaries of everyone's review within the month. In about 15 minutes, or I'm sorry, in about 5 minutes at 10:15, we will begin our first review of DAI Dayton Art Institute. Aaron Culp will be the primary reviewer. Gregory, this is where you have a conflict of interest, so I'm gonna put you on hold right now, and then I'll pull you back in when we've completed the DAI review, which will be at 10:30. Welcome back, everyone. Aaron Culp is the primary reviewer for Dayton Art Institute. Aaron, would you please introduce our discussion?
With pleasure. Good morning, everyone. I'm happy to be able to kick off our meeting today with my notes and comments on the Dayton Art Institute's application. So starting in the artistic and cultural vibrancy category, I noted that the application references that they have a strong collection strong participation in terms of the number of audience members who attend or are engaged in their programming, and that the Institute is recognized as a strong, nationally recognized as a strong mid-sized fine art museum. The application highlights some specific strategies and keys that they have in purchasing around inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility priorities with specific metrics that they're targeting for the percentage of new acquisitions, the percentage of special exhibits, and the percentage of focus exhibits that are targeting an underrepresented artistic community. The application also references some specific and key initiatives that they're engaged in to work and collaborate with local artists. And then I also noted both in the application and in my site visit the opportunities for art making workshops on the ground floor that tie in themes from the focus and special exhibits so that attendees have the opportunity to sort of take that experience and apply that in a new context. In particular, I made note during the site visit of the Dream Garden for the Achaea Peremia exhibit, that takeaway seed paper, and attendees were encouraged to write their own dreams and then plant those dreams to create a dream garden. I thought that was a really interesting and interactive way for people who were attending to take those themes from the artwork and apply them and think about them outside of the four walls of the museum itself. The application also highlights that they are focused on developing mobile programming with some pilot activities in partnership with the Y in 2024. Looking at the community component, the application highlights an interest in better understanding the composition and geographic diversity of the audience so that they can better identify where to target additional outreach initiatives from their marketing so that their audience represents the diversity of the geographic region that we live within. I mentioned before their key initiatives in IDEA and the community piece. In their application highlighted that they recognize the limitation of the permanent collection in terms of diverse representation of artists, and that's a key initiative for acquisition. I mentioned the new mobile program that they're launching in 2024 to better engage the community, and there are some key initiatives they highlight in the application around improving accessibility through their new app, and then also through investments in technology on the website so that folks who access the website can view content and access it in multiple languages. They also highlight a diversity and a breadth of community partners, and then also 5 key community partners that they're targeting for expanded programming. And I think that speaks to a strength of engagement with other organizations within the community. In terms of organizational capacity, I thought the strategic planning process that they articulated is a really strong process. They attempted to engage more than 4,000 individuals across the community. The plan is a very well thought out and metric-driven plan with really specific targets so that they can measure their success in their 4 key areas. The financial position seems to be strong. They do have a reliance on fundraising And the financial review noted that obviously the building that they're in is old and expensive to maintain. The application noted that they've had some pretty significant investments in capital, and one of the keys in their fundraising for the future is continuing to build an endowment to support ongoing depreciation needs. I think that summarizes my comments. I'm happy to hand it over to my other panelists for additional thoughts.
Erin Smith-Glenn and Linda Hoffman, you're welcome to join this conversation and bring your own feedback into the discussion.
Okay. So what I have noticed, just in observing the DAI over the course of, well, obviously years, but more specifically the past couple of years, is the increased diversity of the program offerings, increased diversity in including things like, certain panel discussions that seek to diversify the personnel within the local museum. Definitely seeing more increased sensitivity towards things like the exhibitions, and not just the exhibitions, but the artists behind the exhibits, and not just the work itself. I think in the past there was an issue, at least one time, with, the work, itself is showing diverse subject matter, but not necessarily showing diverse artists behind the subject matter. And so I'm seeing that as being something that they seem to be more intentional with dealing with. While I am seeing a increase in diversity in terms of the YEC fellowship program, in terms of the students that participate, that are selected from local colleges, while I'm seeing somewhat of a diverse increase in the college students, in terms of the high school students that are selected for participation in the YEC program, that should seriously be addressed, because what it appears to be is seeking specifically certain students from certain schools, or maybe even not certain schools, but just certain schools is what I meant to say. Maybe not looking for certain students, but definitely looking at certain schools, which kind of in a way it forces you to seek specific students, qualifications, rather than diversifying the reach, the people that are actually being reached. The high school students that get to have the opportunity to participate in the YEC program should definitely be diverse.
Thank you, Erin. Linda, would you like to comment on DAI's application? Linda, you're muted. So if you just go down and click on the microphone again, we'll be able to hear you. Thanks. We've got you, Linda. You're live.
I don't know that I'm really prepared to do this. I thought this application was really phenomenal. I agree with everything that's been said so far. My only suggestion, and this really doesn't, maybe, I don't know if this is even the appropriate part, but when I went for my visit, they weren't prepared for it. And that threw me off a little bit. Now, they responded quickly when I talked to the front desk and got somebody down there, but I think there should have been something more formal set up for the visit.
One thing I'll say about the visits is, we definitely, the idea of setting those visits up is that you're able to experience the organization the way a normal patron would. So, that may have been why DAI didn't have really a formal, introduction. They should have known you were coming, I think, but I'll look into that, Linda. But I will say that definitely the idea with those visits is that you experience the organization as a normal audience member would, or a
Okay.
patron. Yeah,
Right. I
yeah.
guess I was comparing that to some of the other visits where where I had a different experience, so.
Okay, no, I'm glad you're letting me know that, and I'll follow up with you about that and look into that process a little bit more. As you know, I came in when the ship was already moving on this grant, so I'll go back around and take a look at how those visits were originally set up, and kind of look at how those things are being communicated in the future. So thanks for that note. I appreciate it. I want to make sure that you have some context for how to think about that as you review DAI.
One of the other points that I will mention that I thought was positive is that they have several different approaches to evaluate the programs that are in place. So it doesn't appear to always be the same. I don't remember exactly what the differences were, but I thought that was impressive as well, that they were using a different evaluation system for some of the different exhibits and so forth that they have.
Thanks. Thank you. Everybody in the room, I just want you to know I'm an avid note taker, and all of these notes are going for the summaries that the applicants will receive later in the month. So if you're wondering what all my chicken scratch is. At this moment, I'm going to invite Gregory back into the room. Welcome back, Gregory. And we will have a 2-minute pause here, and then we will open our discussion of Dayton Contemporary Dance Company at 10:30. Welcome back, everyone, to the Community Arts Grant Review Panel. Aaron Culp, could you start us off with the review for the next 15 minutes of DCDC?
Be happy to. I will say I'll frame my comments similarly to the way that I did with GAI. So I'll start by speaking to the notes I have on the artistic component. So The application notes that DCDC has strong recognition nationally as a contemporary dance company, one with majority African American, and one of the most well-known nationally. The application noted that this past season they had a record number of subscriptions, which I think is something worth shouting to the rooftops. The application also noted the national and international touring nature of the company, and notes that not only do they perform locally, but they do expand their reach to national scale and internationally as well. They note that they've engaged a national consulting firm to expand organizational capacity. And then the application notes that in addition to the main stage performances, another significant focus of their outreach is in the community education space. They have a broad reach in terms of audience, both from the main stage. I didn't write it down, but I think it was about 6,000 impacted by those main stage performances, and something north of 20,000. I think I might have that on my next page of notes in the community education piece. So I noted strong participation numbers there. They also note cross-discipline collaborations as a key emphasis point for them as they grow and expand their programming. They included in their application that in their upcoming season, they're commissioning 3 brand new pieces, which again, I think is something that is very exciting to make note of as we think about the artistic relevance and innovation of one of our organizations, one of our applicant organizations. Looking at community, I will speak. The application notes that they have a vision to continue expanding touring, and that both national and international engagement of the company. The application notes the partnership they had with the Springfield Symphony and the dynamic nature of having live orchestral accompaniment for a dance performance, how vibrant that is, and also the strength of that community partnership. They note that they partnered with more than 30 local schools on the educational programming component. And I'll say from the site visit that I conducted, I attended the DCDC2 performance, and anecdotally, I think it was the most vibrant audience of and certainly the most youthful and the most diverse of the ones that I attended, and I think that's worth noting. Looking at capacity, the application referenced in a couple of different points as it was speaking to the strategic plan that there were components of the strategic plan they weren't able to implement due to staff turnover, which is completely understandable, but I do want to note that. The financial review also noted that they're projecting a shortfall, and their application notes that they don't have a reserve, and they are aiming to build those reserves along with improving the ratio of revenue they receive from earned revenue, i.e. ticket sales, as opposed to contributed revenue. I noted as I was reviewing the application that there is a strong reliance on donated revenue. I want to say it's 85% was the ratio they quoted, and they have articulated in the application that they're trying to get that to 65% by 2025. So I think there are some challenges and headwinds they're facing as an organization, but they are noting in the application, they're trying to do all of the right things. And the strategic plan has good objectives and good priorities. And knowing that they have recently announced a new executive director, I think I'm optimistic that a year from now, we'll be looking at a different situation. I think that summarizes all of my comments.
Thank you very much, Erin. At this time, Linda, Gregory, and are welcome to join. Gregory, your hand is up, so why don't you start us off?
The comments that Erin made, I'm in agreement with. The organization's impact in the community is very strong. One thing that I would note is that the application would be better enhanced with listing the credentials of key team members who coordinate programming and in the areas of performances, education, outreach, bookings, and market, for example. Another noted enhancement would be the evaluation method. The applicant uploaded a survey tool that could be enhanced with more detailed quantitative questioning and inquiry, ticket prices, number of performances attended, zip codes, things of that nature. So overall, those are the comments that stood out to me.
Thanks, Gregory. Linda, would you like to add anything to
I
this?
have just a couple of things, yes. And these were kind of mentioned, but I thought it was impressive that they work with so many different organizations in our community, like the community colleges and the dance schools, and to give those people the opportunity to experience what they do and what they might want to do in the future. The other thing that I liked was that when they are developing their programs, they're doing a collaboration not only with their inside staff, but with some outside resources. So they're getting a broad variety of people with input on their program development, which I like as well.
Mhm. Thank you, Linda. We'll take really the next 5 minutes for you all to make your notes and make any decisions you want to make about updating your score. And then we will reconvene at 10:45 for a review of DPAA.
2 o'clock.
Welcome back, Erin Smith Glenn.
Oh, man, it has been a whole week.
Internet issues, everyone. Erin, would you, we lost you in the middle of the review for DCDC, and we only have 1 minute before we switch to DPAA, but would you like to say something about DCDC before we move on?
I will be real quick, and thankfully I wrote notes, so I'll just.
No, I want
directly.
to make sure you have your opportunity.
I'll just read the notes directly to make it quick. So I wrote, it's very impressive to see how many free performances are offered to children, especially in diverse communities. I did want to know, I guess, more about how they're able to do that while maintaining a budget. More details on that would be helpful. Additionally, DCDC would greatly benefit by bringing in personnel that might be more savvy regarding how to boost fundraising events. The fundraising amount that was raised was low in a very scary way. But I think they have the potential of raising it if they brought in someone that was more savvy in that specific area. It seems to be an ongoing concern. Other things that could help with that are interns and outreach programs that deal specifically with that. And otherwise, I believe that you guys manage very well, especially considering the large community outpact and how many people experience their services free of charge. And then especially with how much they move around the community as well, and going out, way out in the boonies to places like CSU and other places But I would say consider addressing more strategically the high staff turnover rate and why some people manage to stay long-term while others, don't, and maybe figuring out how to bridge that gap over time, and quite possibly even using the community, the Dayton community, to develop an ad hoc committee as an example.
Thank you, Erin. And thanks to DPAA for giving us 1 minute of your time. We'll
Thank
go
you
over
so
a little
much. My
bit,
apologies.
I think. Yeah, no, I'm really glad you got your opportunity to share your thoughts on DCDC. Gregory, can you go ahead and introduce DPAA at this point as the primary reviewer for that organization?
Yes, the Dayton Performing Arts Alliance is applying for general operating support. They have presented evidence of their letters of determination for tax exemption and a detailed history of the participating entities, which are Dayton Opera, Dayton Ballet, and the Dayton Philharmonic Art Orchestra. This part of this history included a merger between the three organizations, which allowed them to keep their individual management structures and business operations while preserving and promoting the integrity and identity of each of the three art forms. The purpose is to inspire every generation and background to love the arts. The strengths of the application were the merger, the forming of the three organizations, creating a single management structure, and thereby aligning themselves to really support the arts for the entire community. The applicant offered ample evidence demonstrating the organization's depth and scale, the productions, the programming, and the community impact. DPAA partners with a number of community organizations, United Rehabilitative Services, St. Vincent de Paul Daybreak, Miami Valley Housing Opportunities, and Montgomery County Board of Developmental Disabilities Services to ensure accessibility to performances for the community. This was aligned with their inclusion and diversity commitment to the community. The fiscal documentation was clear, and they indicated that in 2022 and 2023 fiscal year, they maintain a budget surplus. The applicant's annual budget spreadsheet was clear and detailed, oversight and documentation. One note that to consider is the applicant is encouraged to explore innovative means by which the organizations may connect with underserved populations of the community in non-traditional settings. And those are the notes that I have. Unmute, Rachel.
Ah, thank you. I need to unmute as well. Let's go ahead and open it up at this time to the rest of the panel. Aaron Kolk, Aaron Smith-Glenn, and Linda Hoffman, and Gregory, thanks for taking the lead on DPAA. I appreciate your time.
I guess I'll go first. I really think there's something very special about, I guess what stood out to me personally is how deeply they go within the community to include as many underserved people as possible. Certain organizations like the St. Vincent de Paul organization, which, specifically seeks people that are in constant need of assistance in some way or another. And so thinking about people like them, considering our military, the Wright Pat Air Force Base, which anyone who knows Wright Pat Air Force Base knows it's quite diverse, and has been for a while. And so reaching out to them so they can have the opportunity to maybe de-stress through the arts, I think is a really important and a very major asset. I would like to see the strategic plan, and especially to see it addressed more so to include the Dayton Public School youth, respectfully. And also the discounted tickets, the free tickets, just the creativity of finding ways to discount the performances, I think is also a really great way to engage the broader audience. And let me see, it was something else. The inclusion of diverse, not just staff, but directors is very exciting to see. Very intentional, very strategic. And I noticed that even in the performance that I was able to see because of the tickets that were provided. I think the idea strategy is paying off visibly. I look forward to seeing it pay off more over time. That's all I have for now.
Thanks, Erin.
Mhm.
Much appreciated.
No problem.
Erin Culp, you want to go next?
Yeah, the only comment I would add is a call out to the sensory friendly Nutcracker. I know that was highlighted in the application, and the growth that they've seen in the audience there, not only offering that for the community, but also the uptake they're having in participation there, I think is something that should be complimented.
Thank you. And Linda, we just need you to unmute, and then it'll be, if you can add your 2 cents to this conversation for DPAA.
Okay, can you hear me? Great. There were a couple of things, everything that was said, I definitely agree with. A couple of things that I thought were important is that when they do a survey of a performance, they don't just do the audience, they do the performers. Now, that was something I thought was important. Students and teachers and other people, so they're getting a lot of input. They also have a business leadership team that provides a variety of input, and I thought that was an impressive thing to do as well, to get input from the business community on some of their programs, or maybe all. I certainly agree that the discounted tickets for military is a great program to increase audience size and diversity, so I really enjoyed that as well. That was all I had to add.
Thank you, Linda. Any closing thoughts before we take some time here for you all to adjust scores or take additional notes? Okay. We'll go ahead and take the next 5-6 minutes for you all to review your thoughts on DPAA's application and to update your scores. And we will begin again at 11 o'clock with the Human Race Theater. Welcome back, everybody, to the Community Arts Grant Panel review. And it is 11 o'clock, and we are about to begin our review of the Human Race Theater Company. Linda Hoffman is the primary reader for this organization. Linda, will you please take some time to introduce this organization and give your thoughts on their application?
Certainly, I'd be glad to. One of the things that appealed to me is that they strive to tell stories that appeal to everyone. They don't just seek to entertain, but there's also a purpose behind what they're doing to bring light to situations that need to be heard, that represent things going on in the community or perhaps even in the world. Their 6-show season, they try to include new works, old classics, and then partner with some neighboring arts organization. One of the ones coming up now is a partnership with Dayton Live, where they're doing a Broadway tour production. The season of shows is intentionally selected by a diverse committee. It includes the artists and the staff and the community to bring shows that they feel will be best for their production and for us as the audience. They involve the community in many ways, certainly impressive ways. In addition to partnering with other organizations, one of the ones that I like the best, which my opinion doesn't really matter, I guess, but they have a playwright program to develop new works. And then those works are shown in some pop-up activities that they do around the community. They also have some initiatives that are out of the arts world. And I thought that was impressive as well, that they're looking at things other than just art. They had some really creative ideas on how to increase ticket sales. The couple that really spoke to me were Parents Night Out, where they provided babysitting for kids of parents that were coming to a production. Pay What You Can program for people that can't really afford the ticket price, but they still want to attend the show. There were a couple of things that I thought needed attention. They talked about raising money for a visual and audio assistance, which sounded like a really nice program to bring some more people in. Said they had raised $150,000, but there were no details on how they were going to raise the rest of it or how much they needed on that. I'm basing this on just the one performance that I saw, but I feel like they need to pay more attention to the show content relationship to the primary audience that is attending the show. Sounded like they're working to overhaul their job recruitment, and they had a very good explanation on how that was going to happen. Working hard to manage their budget to maintain their reserve fund. And certainly that's an easy thing to dip into, but when it's gone, it's gone. So to reserve it is very important, and they're working on that. The grant talks about lowering expenses and raising revenue, and I felt that more detail was needed in both of these areas on how they were going to accomplish that. And that's what I have.
Thank you so much, Linda, for your time taking the lead on the Human Race Theater Company. At this time, let's go ahead and open the discussion up to the rest of our panelists.
So I agree. I really, as a mother of three, enjoy the offerings for parents. You know, I remember having back-to-back toddlers and just could not get out to see and do the things that I really wanted to do. And, if I was aware of that, I probably would have participated anymore, or participated in it at all, just because it was offered. I think it's just really cool to offer things like that. I'd like to see how maybe they would plan to showcase that more often, because I don't think parents are readily looking for ways to get out into the, community in that way. I think people look to things that they automatically assume are going to be discounted. No one really thinks about discounted art programs. So how would you make that better known? Are you going and announcing it to local daycare centers, YMCA, advertising it in that way, even sending them an email, letting them know so they can let parents know, things of that nature. I do enjoy the way that they immediately try to seek feedback after a show. I've seen that from more than one organization. I noticed the inclusion of the Divine Nine, which is the historically Black sororities and fraternities. But it only listed sororities and it didn't really list their names, and I don't expect you guys to go into depth with that because that's such a heavy history right there. But while I do enjoy the desire to reach out to these organizations, just wanted to make you all aware that they exist at many local institutions, both PWIs, but especially at local HBCUs. And I'm not sure if, the local HBCUs, because we have two of them in the area, I'm not sure if they're aware of the desire to include their feedback. I think they would love that. I would say working on the strategic plan, the strategic summary is a bit vague. And I think it should be a major upcoming agenda item. Respectfully, it's really vague. And I guess I'd like to know, regarding the upgrades, I think that were previously mentioned, the timeline for implementing that. I didn't see a timeline available. Maybe it was and I skipped over it, but I don't remember seeing it. But overall, I would say great effort with remaining both relevant and in tune with the community all around you. I think it's very creative, the efforts that they're taking.
Thanks, Aaron, so much. Gregory or Aaron, cool?
Yes, I'll go. I had some notes. The applicant impressed me with their commitment to reaching diverse audiences, and they gave an example of some of the audiences that they are intentional about producing programming with, and the Blue Star families, LGBTQ, Dayton Children's Hospital. Those were some of the things that stood out to me. With Muse Machine, with the Human Race Theater, I noted that the samples were a little bit lengthy, and they could be shortened and revised so that the review process could go more smoothly. Also, staff bios, including staff bios would be helpful. And that's pretty much one other thing that I liked was the pop-ups. They were pop-ups in the community, which I thought was a innovative way to bring arts into the community in non-traditional settings. And those are the notes that I have.
Thank you, Gregory. I appreciate that. Aaron Kulp, would you like to add your voice to this discussion?
I actually don't have anything to add. All of the notes that I had and all of the comments I had intended to make have already been highlighted by other panelists.
So are there any closing thoughts then for the Human Race Theater Company, as far as what you all feel are the overall strengths of the application, and areas for addressing?
One comment I'll add to is the strength of the application was the organization's commitment to developing new work and emerging artists. They really presented that very well in the application.
And I think the only thing I would underscore and echo from the comments that Erin made about the innovative approaches that they take to engaging additional audience members, both through the Parents' Night Out and the Pay As You Can. I think both of those are to be commended, and in the application, it's clear that that's a focused and intentional effort. And I would echo Erin's comments that, I'd like to see more in the application that details how they're communicating and how they're messaging that, how they're marketing those opportunities.
Thank
It's clear
you.
that that's a focus and should be shouted from the rooftops.
All right, thank you, everyone. At this time, we're actually panelists. Please make your notes on the Human Race Theater Company and update any scores that you feel is appropriate based on this discussion. But also, we're taking a break from now until 11:30. For the panelists, please do not leave the session, but you're welcome to mute and take a little break here in addition to creating some final thoughts for the Human Race Theater Company. And thank you to all of the applicants who have been in the room. We will be restarting at 11:30 with K-12 Gallery and Tejas. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed your break. Were able to get yourself some refreshing beverages. As we start with our next hour, we'll be covering 4 organizations before we have our lunch break beginning at 12:30. Right now, Erin Smith Glenn will introduce and begin our commentary on K-12, on K-12 Gallery in Tejas. Erin, are you ready to go?
I am.
All right, thank you so much. And let's begin our second half of the session.
All right, so K-12 Gallery in Tejas has been around for slightly over 3 decades now. And they've been able to maintain a lot of standards over time with serving the greater Dayton community, the Miami Valley, through arts or very arts-based workshops, classes, things like hosting the Scholastic Awards, and the very creative annual campaign that they kick off, the Art Off, which seeks to involve, I would say, a wide range of diverse artists within the community, bringing them in to participate in the fundraiser. I think is a really wise choice because it allows artists to have literal hands-on experience with the fundraiser. And I think it makes it more personable. I think that the location is a great location. It is very visible. It is hard to miss. It's easily accessible. And when you go into the space, it's very open. Even before you go into the space, I want to mention how there's always someone to greet you. As long as the weather permits, there's usually even someone right at the door outside even to greet you if the door is open. Just having not just the classes and the workshops throughout the space, but also having the gallery, the actual gallery where artists are able to display their work, and seeing even the diversity of the artists that have displayed their work there. I think it has been known and seen and has been visible over time. Seeing the display of diverse arts organizations exhibiting, and even just individual diverse artists exhibiting, I think is a really great idea. More specifically in my notes, let me go to my notes, regarding the personnel, because there is obviously a wide range of personnel because of the wide range of classes that are offered at the different age levels that are also offered in the different sections. But how can we know the qualifications of the personnel beyond their given names and titles? It doesn't go into depth beyond this is who they are, this is their face, and this is their title. But how do we know, in fact, that they are actually qualified to teach the courses that they're able to teach? So listing that information more specifically, even if it doesn't show a full bio or a full resume, even a statement as to where they attended, their training that allowed them to be in the space that they are able to be in, and how long they've done that particular experience, and maybe where they've done it, if they've done it before K-12, things like that. I'm not sure about their community collaboration beyond their sponsors. I'd like to know more. And I'm also curious to know why it doesn't seem to be a large Dayton Public School presence, which is interesting because it's the K-12 gallery, but it seems that the presence that they're involved more directly in are some of the religious-based schools, in I think one community school, but I didn't see any evidence for them to be a K-12 gallery in a space that's very easily accessible off the RTA line. Why is there not more evidence of outreach to the Dayton Public Schools, if there is any outreach to the Dayton Public Schools, which I think is very critical considering the title of being K-12. I don't see much evidence of intentional diversity engagement within the strategic plan. Once again, if we're talking about K-12 and offering these offerings to people that are underserved and within the community, then why is there not any of that listed within the strategic plan, especially as it relates to the Dayton Public Schools? And if it is evident, where is it so we can find it? I would say work more on adding, respectfully, working more possibly on adding a more diverse component so that the reach you're going for, because I believe that they are wanting to go for a larger reach, but so that it reaches beyond and even into the deepest and least recognized parts of Dayton where art and culture are needed most of all. That is the layout that I have. I'll digress. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Erin. Appreciate that you're getting us started here. Let's go ahead and open it up to the panel. Gregory, I see your hand is up, so why don't you start us off?
The applicant presented clear evidence of their commitment to conduct outreach to the marginal and underrepresented and underserved communities in the area. They also, during the site visit, there was evidence that they had reserved space for public schools students to come and participate in the program. I think the strength of this organization is that they are well organized in their system of providing art classes and art education to a wide range of the community. And it's evidenced by their initiative to reach out to the HALO project, which was students who were in the public schools but had sort of been placed on suspension. And they worked with those students to conduct some art therapy and therapeutic programs. The public schools and the private schools they were reaching out to, as what was witnessed, and the leadership, the instructors were diverse. I think what could strengthen the organization is more support. One thing that what stood out to me is that they were providing opportunities for artists to be employed and have income through teaching art classes, and that was a strength that I noticed. I think that developing the application with stronger statements for their personnel, such as bio statements and or a CV, would be helpful. Their evaluation tools were distinct, but measuring the outcomes, the skills and the abilities would be a key component in terms of showing the students' rate of progress. The collaboration, the section may be enhanced with detailed descriptions of partnering opportunities and measurable achievements.
Thank you. I think that was helpful, in a helpful response. Linda or Erin Colt, do you want to join in here in this discussion about strengths or areas for improvement with K-12?
Yeah, I'd be happy to add my thoughts. I had flagged that the application made note of a need for additional scholarship funding to expand access for underserved youth to the classes. And I thought that was important that they highlighted that as a area where they're intentionally focusing on expanding access. I also noted in the financial review that there's a good mix of revenue, that the financial position isn't reliant on, just one source of income. So it seems to be a good mix of different sources, which I think provides some opportunity for additional growth and expansion of programs and meeting the needs of additional students.
Okay.
I have some of the same comments that have been said, but I just have one other thing that I wanted to add that I was so thankful for. And I'm not sure this is in the application. It might have just been from the visit, but they do work with youth that are incarcerated. If you've been by there and have seen the paintings that are on the windows and so forth, the incarcerated youth do that, and they actually get hired to do murals for other people. And I asked them about how that happens, and they said, well, somebody draws the mural and then the youth paint it. But they get such pride and satisfaction out of doing that. So I just thought that was a great program to bring in some diversity, obviously, and to help these kids out.
Thanks, Linda. That's a good example. Anybody else want to say anything in closing about K-12 Gallery and Tejas?
Yes.
Before reviewing your comments? Aaron Smith, go ahead. Glenn.
I would like to thank the fellow panelists for offering their very unique perspectives that have answered some of my lingering questions, because I think what K-12 offers in the heart of the community coming right off the highway is very unique and very special. And so in knowing some things that I guess are not readily visible to the person that's just kind of walking in off the streets, that is extremely helpful and beneficial to know. So thank you very much for that.
Mhm.
That's why panels are so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, everybody, for your comments. And I just want to say too, I think this feels like one of the discussions that we've had that kind of exemplify, I think, what we're really hoping to achieve with the panel review process, where for those of you in the room who are applicants, you can see that what's happening here is everybody's come into this room having done their work and completed, a preliminary review, but now receiving and what you're witnessing really is the first time the reviewers are having a discussion with each other, and they're able to provide feedback to each other and kind of go back through their own evaluations and rethink perhaps or reevaluate what they're saying to try to provide you the most accurate or the most helpful feedback possible. So with that note, we'll go ahead and take a couple minutes here for the panelists to review their comments and their scores for K-12 Gallery and Tejas before we move on to our next applicant. All right, welcome back, everybody. Thank you, panelists. If you want to jot any last minute notes or bullet list, if you didn't get through all of that. But it's 11:45 and it is time for Gregory to introduce and begin our discussion of Muse Machine's application for the Community Arts Grant.
Thank you. This is an application for general operating support. The tax and information documentation on nonprofit status was demonstrated. The mission of the organization, Muse, is an arts organization that serves students and their teachers year-round through arts integrated residencies, in-school and out-of-school performances, professional quality student performance opportunities, and a world-class professional development. The vision is a place where imagination and inspiration meet teaching and learning. The applicant indicated a body of 275 personnel and volunteers, in-person attendance of 72,000, and offers 203 programs. Also, they compensated artists. There was 43 artists who were compensated, and their artistic and cultural vibrancy. The strength of the organization is the applicant presented evidence of impact and engagement, including audience reach, quantitative measurements, and testimonials. The applicant's work samples were offered evidence of the range and diversity of the programs, the areas of improvement, the applicant and the impact and engagement data points are broadly defined. There could be a little more specifics on what they are measuring in their data, correlating to the data points with statements of impact to support the application assertions. The student performers gain valuable life skills like accountability, teamwork, leadership, time management, confidence, and community building. So those are things that could be quantified in a survey that would help to strengthen their evaluation methods. The students, also the efficacy of the programs, the students' in-school performance, attendance, grades, and levels of engagement. The areas of improvement also would include the application may be strengthened by identifying the specific goals and the roles key individuals play in the planning process. With Muse Machine, they had a very vibrant presentation of performance and engaged the students and the professionals, the teachers, in previewing programming for the students. So it was a lively visit, and the people, the Muse Machine really made an effort to welcome the audiences in attendance, and it was a wonderful experience. Those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Gregory. Just real quick for any newcomers in the room, I'm a scribbler and I'm just taking notes throughout the review process so that I can more easily write the summaries that I'll be sending out to all of the applicants later this month. So if you're wondering what that's about, let's go ahead and open up the conversation. Thank you, Gregory, for taking the lead on this one. And open it up now to discussion between the rest of you on the panel. Thanks, Aaron.
A couple of things that I wanted to call out from the application and highlight. The application mentions a number of times the emphasis they have and the partnership with a third-party evaluator in order to, take a really intentional focus in evaluation. The other piece that I noted in the application was the focus on um, local art, and in particular, there's several notes about the upcoming Dayton Funk Music History Program, and I think that is a really interesting and kind of innovative piece that they highlighted several times in the application.
Thank you. Two good notes. Linda or Aaron Smith Glenn? Who
I'll-
wants
I'll-
to go?
This is
Okay.
Linda, I'll speak.
Yeah.
It was kind of fun because what I went to for Muse, all the other groups that we've been evaluating were coming into that, like DC and I don't think Dayton Live, but anyway, so that was fun. But I was impressed by the experience of the artistic personnel that participate with Muse. And the one program that really touched me is that they have designed a program for URS clients, United Rehabilitation Services. And I thought that was a very important and meaningful outreach.
Thank you. Aaron Smith Glenn?
Yes, kind of piggybacking, I was really impressed with the diversity of the personnel, listing their contributions to Muse and even beyond Muse. Saw some recognizable names within the community. People, not anyone I know personally, but just having seen their work throughout the community. And so it was nice to see a very diverse panel or personnel. I do admire the diverse community outreach, which I think will lead to a legacy of consistent growth and inclusion within the organization, but also within the community as a whole. I would, considering their charge is arts, especially in education, and definitely available to all. And I'm not sure if this is available somewhere, maybe I missed it, but please forgive me if I did. But I'd like to see how they could integrate the College of Education, maybe at local HBCUs, students that are interested in going into education, maybe seeing how they could collaborate with these students while they are seeking their education degrees. It seems like they do a good job with reaching out and asking local artists and educators, hey, what do you think? But I wonder how that would benefit them if they went to the colleges and actually polled the students, because, at these institutions, these students are all in the same college of education, but they're coming from all over with all of these vast experiences. And so that would be something that, I wouldn't say is a major charge, but it might be really interesting to even see that particular perspective, from the faculty and staff at local HBCU College of Ed programs. Additionally, the fact that Muse is rooted in arts education for all, I think naturally makes them a very strong candidate for funding. Few strategic plans are as legible as the one that I saw, and structured. And I would think, or I would say that the board's very well-intended plan is clearly making a difference. I think one of my favorite things is just how much they are seeking feedback regularly and consistently. Besides that, I think that's all I have to offer that I can readily think of.
Thanks to each of you. Any closing thoughts or comments before you return to your comments and review your numbers and that kind of thing?
I have one quick comment, and I'm not sure it's appropriate at this time, but the visit that I did was where teachers had come in to view different programs that Muse was offering at the schools. And I ended up sitting at a table with several teachers, And they all were just thrilled with the program and so excited to be involved in the process of picking the particular ones that were going to come to their school. So that was enlightening to me to see how much they enjoyed it and appreciated what they did, what they do.
Thanks, Linda. You're offering up all the good examples as we move through this. All right, everybody, we'll go ahead and we'll mute here. We've got about 5 minutes before the next review begins for you to kind of review your comments and the scores that you have offered up to Muse Machine. So we'll go ahead and we'll mute and we'll take some time and then get started again at noon. Okay, everyone, welcome back. It is noon, according to my computer. So we're going to get started next with Springfield Symphony Orchestra, and Aaron Smith-Gwen is our primary reviewer. So Aaron, will you please take a moment here to introduce Springfield Symphony Orchestra and set our conversation off with your initial review of their application?
Sure thing. All right. So the Springfield Symphony Orchestra has a pretty long-standing history in the city of Springfield. Their website begins by stating those things, and but it also is very relevant towards the things that are going on currently. It's a very vibrant website too. I want to start with that because I think that's important in a very technologically driven world, is to have something that's going to pull people in that maybe are not right around the corner from Springfield's community, or maybe they are and they're interested in the Springfield Symphony Orchestra's offerings, but maybe they want to see how it might be relevant to them. And they very fluidly and very easily show those things on the website. So I want to mention that first. I think the different things that they have to offer the community, especially in recent months and years, is very diverse and very robust, and I think very exciting as well. And I'll get into that real soon. But first, I want to just say that I really enjoy the fact that the tuition for the children is already a very reasonable price, that includes dinner. I would say reasonable considering the fact that it's a symphony orchestra for children. It's reasonable considering the fact that the students are not required to audition. They sign up, they're automatically entered, they're taught things, and they're enriched as a result of it. But I also enjoy the fact that even though the tuition is reasonable and it includes dinner for the students, they still offer financial aid packages, which I think speaks to the sensitivity of how the Springfield Symphony Orchestra views the Springfield community, having, not an extremely scary poverty level, but, it's somewhere between like 22 to 23%. And I think recognizing that is a really wise and very humble thing to do. I am looking forward to seeing the introduction of the after-school program and what that will do for the district, and who specifically that will serve. But I did see that that's getting ready to become a thing, and so I think that's going to be very exciting. Respectfully, the visibility of the diversity within the board and the staff, it's hard to see like where the diversity is within the board and the staff, that presence. But even so, they still show that they are clearly qualified to be in the position that they're in. I would say maybe addressing more diverse visibility could be addressed through maybe just creating a title with, the inclusion, diversity, equity, and all of that in mind, maybe through a staff member or through a committee, like an ad hoc committee, something like that could, I think, easily address that. The survey that's available, it is very vague. It's a very vague sheet that maybe has a handful of questions and doesn't really go into depth to tap into what the audience might be feeling, experiencing, all those sorts of things. I think maybe even having, like I previously mentioned, a committee that addresses that particular thing would be helpful, very, very helpful, because although I would say that considering the vagueness of the survey, they still seem to be making up for it in other ways. I think they do a good job of reaching out to the Springfield area, and through things like being relevant, the hip opera, the inclusion of having a symphony orchestra when people are watching a movie, which I've always thought has just been really cool. Everyone loves the effects that we hear in movies, but it's another thing to experience those effects live. I think that's really different and unique to this area. Let's see, the inclusion of history, diverse history, including people like Dizzy Gillespie, Charlie Bird Parker, Mahalia Jackson, different concerts that celebrate them. I think recently including that is, I think, a really wise thing, and it looks like they're also reaching across the highway to make sure that that is reaching beyond Springfield. So I think that's really cool. Yeah, the diverse programming and offerings that are coming up, I think, are going to strongly serve and even uplift the Springfield community. The financial evidence seems to be stable and legible. And I think at this time, that is all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin, for taking the lead for this one. Let's go ahead at this time and open up the discussion to the rest of our panelists. Who would like to begin? Thanks, Erin.
Sure. I echo a lot of the comments, Erin, that you made. I will highlight just a couple of things, in terms of artistic and cultural vibrancy. I'll say I was impressed by the plans and the programming for the upcoming season. Erin called out the hip opera, and that sounds really interesting. I'm excited to see that. And then some innovative ideas articulated in the application around continuing to engage schools and youth in that community. I noted in my evaluation on the community impact and engagement component that there was a good example of the collaboration with other partner organizations within the community in the application. The collaboration with DCDC I would be interested to see more evidence of those collaboration, and then a little bit more detail I'd like to see in the application around how they're reaching out to an audience beyond the traditional symphony audience. I think that's noted in the application, but maybe a little bit more detail there would be helpful. And then I echo, I think Erin noted, there isn't anything in the application that I saw that spoke to the diversity of the board and the staff, and would like to see a little bit more there. And then just on the financial piece, want to note strong financial position, really an impressive financial position as I was looking at the budget.
Thank you, Erin. Gregory, I know you have your hand up. You want to jump in here?
Yes, I have two comments. The first, I want to address the site visit. I attended the video games live presentation. It was energetic, it was innovative. I really appreciated the hospitality and welcoming environment that I walked into, and the engagement level of the audience. They were engaged in the performance and after the performance. So that was very impressive. The applicant strengths for me, the programming was impressive, and it had an array of mixed media and mixed genre performances. The spectrum of the arts were represented, and the work samples were of high quality and adhered to the Culture Works work sample guidelines. The program development demonstrated steps to increase education and outreach programs, and the ensemble opportunities for young musicians. So they had a strong commitment to developing young musicians within the arts. Building equity and inclusion, the organization demonstrated a strong commitment to actions that promote inclusion of underrepresented populations. The applicants provided precise responses to many of the questions within the application, and the application was exceptionally well written. One note, the link to the orchestra moves work sample was not accessible, so that link may need to be updated for future reference. But those are my general comments.
The only additional comment that I have is there was a substantial number of subscribers that did not renew, but there was no verbiage to say they were finding out why or what they were going to do about that. And I would have liked to have seen that.
I'm sorry, can I add a little
Of
tiny?
course, yeah, I was just gonna invite.
Okay, no, I want to piggyback on that. I think that's extremely important because since it seems you all are incorporating these very new, very unique programs that might at first bring about the lack of renewed subscriptions. So I think including that and maybe including the fact that, I don't know, maybe you're trying to find a broader audience, a newer, more relevant audience. And I think those things are okay as long as they align with the mission, align with diversity and equity and inclusion. I think those things are important. But yes, I think it should be mentioned, as to why, or maybe they don't know why, and maybe they need to, once again, going back to the idea of having a committee on board to do that for them might be very helpful.
Well, and the only other piece I'd add here is, and I appreciate, Linda, you calling out the subscription, because I had noted that in my notes, but I didn't mention it in my comments. I think it speaks to the opportunity, especially knowing even with I think it was like a third of subscribers didn't renew, I think was the number, and
Right.
losing that percentage of your subscribers while also still finding yourself in a really strong financial position. That's a unique position for an arts organization to find themselves in. And I think it speaks to the opportunity to, recapture some of those subscribers, but then also it speaks to the strengths of the outreach to a more diverse or engaging people who perhaps haven't been, members of the symphony in the past.
Thanks all of you for your comments. We have about 3 minutes here before the next review begins. So if you could take some time here just to reflect on what you've heard in this discussion, and then update your own comments and potentially the scores for this applicant. Okay, thank you, everyone. Our next organization up for review is Discover Classical. And for this organization, our panelist, Colleen Ryan, was the primary reviewer. Unfortunately, she had something come up and wasn't able to attend in person, but she did provide me with a recording of her feedback for you. For all other applicants, obviously, she's not here today to participate in these discussions of each of the applications, but I will still be summarizing her feedback, and you will receive an indication of her comments, although not labeled with her name. She will be included as I write those summaries for you. Okay, so I'm going to share screen here and we will take a listen to what Colleen has to say.
Hello, my name is Colleen Ryan, and I am sorry I'm not able to be with you there for the panel, but Lisa and Rachel were kind enough to allow me to go ahead and tape my portion since I was not able to make it to the panel meeting. So sorry I'm not with you, but hopefully this will work out. And again, I appreciate their ability to let me be able to do this. So the organization that I'm reviewing their grant is Dayton Public Radio or Discover Classical. I will tell you, I toured the station and it was a very educational and informative tour, as I had not been there and really didn't understand much about what the organization does. So it was a very worthwhile tour, and I hope you all also had an opportunity to do that. So let me talk a little bit about my notes on the artistic and cultural vibrancy. So this organization is a little bit different than the other arts organizations that we reviewed, as you well know. And I think one of the things that I thought is, while I thought it might seem difficult to innovate when your platform is classical music, which to me is a pretty narrow, very narrow topic, but I felt like they didn't seem to let that hold the station back. Their collaboration, and I'll talk about a few of them, with the Bach Society. One great example was their the Silk Road work that the Bach Society did. Very different from what I think most of the listeners that listen to Discover Classical would expect, and yet they were able to partner with the Bach Society and put on that production. Likewise, I thought the Total Eclipse concert that they did with the DPAA and the part that Discover Classical played in that programming was very innovative. I feel that the process of digitizing all of their material is going to help them remain relevant and also is going to help them preserve the history that they have. Community impact, I thought, was very evident. They put an emphasis on local classical works that are created and performed in Dayton. So I love that local flair that they will bring to their programming. I found that their collaborations are very unique because really they're not promoting themselves. They're not doing things necessarily that raise money for them. I guess it would get them more listeners, but really they are promoting and lifting up all of the organizations that they are collaborating with. So you heard the Bach Society, the DPAA. There were many things mentioned in the grant where they're really promoting and working with all the other arts organizations in the community. So I feel like that is something that's really unique that they are allowed to do because they're a public radio. And also did not want to forget their public service announcements. Obviously, that is a unique way and a big community benefit, and that is not something that any other of the arts organizations that we had the chance to review are able to do. So again, I think that brings something very unique that only Discover Classical can do. On their organizational capacity, I thought that found that their strategic plan was influenced by both internal and external audiences. They certainly went out to their listeners and got feedback, and you can see where they have listened to feedback. One example of that is that the fact that they're digitizing their collection, and that is something that their listeners really would wanted to see and be a part of. The only thing I think on the strategic plan that I didn't necessarily pick up on is it didn't appear to address increasing their diversity, either internal or external, therefore reaching a broader audience. So that would be something I would maybe want to learn a little bit more about. And then on the financial front, I know that they are debt-free, and I believe we were told when I toured there that they had not had to dip into any of their reserves or their endowments, which is actually is really a big deal. And as you look at that in comparison to some other not-for-profits, that isn't something that many of them can say. Again, I thought that my tour of the organization was very informative, as I wasn't familiar. I find they're very unique in how they can promote and help all the other arts organizations by publicizing, broadcasting, highlighting them to bring an awareness to them and bring them to the the listening audience. So hopefully that gives you some of my thoughts on Discover Classical, and I look forward to reviewing the rest of this panel discussions, as I'll have an opportunity to listen to it after it's recorded and hear all your comments. So thank you.
Took me a little while there, everybody. Okay, it looks like Erin Smith Glenn has her hand up. So Erin, we'll let you go ahead and get started as we open this up to the panel. Now that we've been able to listen to Colleen's recording.
Yes, kind of piggybacking on what Colleen said, more diversity, I think, being evident within the staff and the board. I see it slowly becoming more evident. I think that increasing that would naturally decrease a more diverse audience outreach, even if it means reaching across the city, inviting people in, going out to the schools, I think would be a really wise choice. I don't think the youth is, excited to turn to a classical radio station most of the time. So maybe finding ways to reach out. I understand the digitization of the music offerings could potentially help. But even so, I think special cases like this in an evolving world might require possibly going out and reaching students in some way, and it might need to be done through collaboration. I think. So, what was I going to say? Possibly even adding more segments facilitated or co-facilitated by more culturally diverse students and professionals. And not that 40 is old, but it's a big age considering people are listening to this station near and far. If that's, kind of their average listening age, that's not really a big age, but it could become that eventually if maybe there's not more diverse, I guess, input being implemented. I do enjoy the moments when I listen in to the radio station and there are children being recognized and awarded for their talents, for their achievements. I think that's one of my favorite things to hear and to see. Even seeing one student talk about, or hearing a student talk about how they were losing interest in classical music, but that they regained an interest in classical music and are now being awarded for their contributions, I think is really great that they've taken a part in that. I think more local outreach, though, to surrounding public schools, because, while we see the youth outreach program, what youth are being reached out to? What is it that they're able to see that puts them in a position where they're, seeing it and being exposed to it that maybe some other, lesser served schools, might need in terms of exposure. And also, I was going to agree as well, the finances, seem to be a high selling point for them. There's a lot of security in that, and the staff retention, and let's see. I think I already mentioned it, but diverse participation outside of the staff and within the community would be more beneficial to everyone over time. Otherwise, it's a very soothing station, very educational. I like how they give some kind of background, and they're not just playing music, they're giving some kind of educational background. But I would say though that it kind of strikes me, and I don't know, I might say it again when it comes to the Bach Society, but there seems to be a little bit of an over collaboration between the Bach Society and Dayton Classical, because there's the Bach Society, but then I listen to Dayton Classical and I'm often hearing Bach. And I'm wondering what's the purpose then of those two being there? Maybe they should merge, I don't know. But it's like two separate organizations that have like the same mission and the same programming, and not the same, not exactly the same, but there's a lot of similarities there, and I'd like to see how they would address that for future reference. I digress.
Gregory?
The application presented evidence of innovation and relevance in the community, and it was explained with the presentation of its programming, the outreach of the 13-week Gateway Series, a symphonic orchestra of performances by African American or those of African American descent. Evidence of community impact was indicated by its instrumental program, which was instrument drive, where the applicant went to partner with organizations such as GRISMR and the Dayton Performing Arts Alliance to collect instruments, refurbish those instruments, and present them to music students in the public schools. And the Cue the Music program was a partnership between the Dayton Philharmonic and Ruskin Elementary School. So this applicant really demonstrated for me the efforts to reach out into the community and in non-conventional ways to encourage and inspire youth to learn more about music. One note I did have is on the work samples. The 2 work samples were presented, but one was a duplicate of the first work sample. And those are my notes.
Thank you, Gregory. I appreciate that. Linda?
I only have one small thing to add because I agree with everything that's been said. I'm not a classical person, but I was so impressed by the tour and everything that they do there for other organizations in the community. My one suggestion is that they should have an annual survey of their clientele to evaluate the programming. I didn't see that. Maybe I missed it, but I didn't see that in the grant.
Thank you, Linda. We're running short on time here, but Erin, Cole, would you like to add anything? Yeah,
Yeah,
don't want you to
I'll
lose
call
the
out.
opportunity here.
Yeah, I'll just call out 2 things that I didn't hear from others. The Young Performers Competition that they highlight in the application, I think is a strength to be promoted. And then the other piece that I heard on the site visit and saw in the application is the access that Discover Classical has the ability to provide to either an older population, an immunocompromised population, or a population that is more rural, and being able to offer a free over the air or accessed via internet service to access the arts for a population that might not physically be able to travel to see the or hear or experience the arts. I think that's an important service, and they call that out in the application. I want to make sure it's noted.
Thank you, Erin. I appreciate that you gave some unique contributions to wrap us up there for Discover Classical. Everyone, we have reached our lunch break beginning at 12:30, and we will reconvene at 1 o'clock. Panelists, please take some time to carefully review your notes. And we will regroup at 1 o'clock. Also remember, panelists, please do not leave the session. Just go ahead and mute and enjoy your next 30 minutes of freedom. Thank you everyone for being here, and see you all at 1 o'clock. Hi, everyone. Welcome back.
Hello.
Hope you all enjoyed your lunch.
It was very necessary.
Okay, it is 1 o'clock. Let's go ahead and get started. I just want to have a quick reminder to all of our panelists to just keep in mind that we want to focus on the applications themselves and our visits as we make our comments. I know we had a discussion beforehand about things that are common knowledge, and yes, we can bring those up. But I just want to make sure that what we're reviewing are the applications and not necessarily the organizations themselves. As we review the grant applicants. So just with that reminder, let's go ahead and get started. And Linda, you are our primary reader and reviewer for the Bach Society of Dayton. Welcome back to all of our applicants who are in the room. And Linda Hoffman will get us started here. Thank you, Linda.
You're welcome. So I do have the Bach Society. Artistically and vibrancy were certainly strong points. Their programs are very creative and very diverse. They bring in artists from all over the world to demonstrate diversity and the high quality programming. And one thing that they said that really struck a note with me is that the diversity is not what really the things we've been talking about today in the past. It's not about race, color, creed, religion, and all of that. They're talking about diversity in music and diversity in rhythms and in languages and instruments. And I think that's impressive and stood out for me. They do a lot of collaborations with local arts groups and artists in the area and out of the area. Another thing that kind of blew me away is that they don't have full-time employees, but they have 94 volunteers that work together to bring their concerts to the public. And if you think about what that means, well, it didn't say that in the grant, so I won't bring that up, but that's a commitment. If you're one of 94 volunteers to put on a concert or a program. The bios of their key personnel, even though they are volunteers, almost all of them were at least a PhD. They were professors. They had experience in the country, out of the country, in this area. And to me, that was really impressive and show that they bring in a lot of talent to produce the shows that they do. They have a lot of different ticket opportunities for people. The normal ones, CultureWorks Passport, of course, is one. And I was impressed by that as well. They do surveys to get information about the audience and what they like and what they don't like. And they do local surveys, but they also go through a national company that rates programs for organizations like theirs as well as theirs. So that gives them a much broader sweep of programs that are of interest to their audience. They have partnerships with different organizations. The two that stood out to me were the Kettering Children's Choir Chorale and the Kettering Advent Ringers, which is like a bell choir type thing. But they do collaborate with universities around here, with different choirs, Stiver School for the Arts. So they certainly are doing an outreach in many, many ways. Okay, so I already talked about the diversity and what they're looking at. So it's just so many things other than just the usual. The application overall, I thought was excellent. They provided lots of relevant detail. They were very thorough. And there's a lot of emphasis on including programs that reach different audiences. They had a 2022-23 strategic plan, and they had the guidance of different groups. So it just wasn't by their organization. They had help from other groups to make this plan worthwhile and comprehensive. Their financial plan is impressive. They've always been in a positive cash position every year of their existence. So obviously they're doing something right to be able to say that. One last thing that I'll say is that the financial review that I received for them, the rating and the verbiage did not agree. So I did change my rating on that from what the evaluators had put on it, just for a side note. And that's it.
Thanks, Linda. I'm glad you addressed the FRC. So for the applicants who are in the room, one of the steps that we take during the review process is we actually forward the financial sections of the application to people who have a background in finance. Because as you can see, we have artists on our panel, we have people who are academics, people from outside, a lot of times the financial field. And we want to offer our panelists, that knowledge, that view, but they are the final decision at the end of the day. But basically what Linda's referring to is the FRC, the Financial Review Committee, who reviewed those sections for this applicant. They create a narrative as well as provide scores. And then it's at the discretion of the panelist with how they respond or use that information. So if you have questions about that, I know Karen probably talked about that during the orientation, but I'm happy to follow up with people if they still have questions about it. Aaron Smith-Glenn, I saw your hand was raised. Would you like to go next?
Sure. So I saw a statement that said, like all other Dayton area and performing arts organizations, our traditional audience is aging, and we hope that our significant increase in the use of surveys and social media will result in a measurable increase in younger members in our audience. And so what was not made clear was the viability, the truth of this statement, not to call you guys liars, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that if your audience is in fact aging out, what are you doing besides social media and surveys to reach a younger audience? When it comes to a younger audience with these ever lowering attention spans, there needs to be probably some more creative ways of reaching out to them. I also noticed the high volunteer rate compared to the fact that there's no actual employees. And since the volunteers seem to be very much qualified, maybe there could be a committee created within the volunteer body to see if certain people might want to take that up as a charge. If there is a charge on that, who's leading that charge? How in depth are you guys going into this charge to make sure that you have an audience once, the aging audience, I don't want to use any mortal terms, but they're an aging audience. And so how are you addressing that? Maybe consider creating a committee that specifically focuses on this, on socioeconomic backgrounds, on the LGBTQ. While you are using social media, when it comes to social media, you have to remember that there's a lot being advertised when it comes to social media. And if you're not doing anything specifically to stand out more, then it doesn't really matter that there's a presence on social media, because there's a huge presence on so many levels when it comes to social media. Another thing I think that might be a reason why the audience is kind of aging out is that you guys are playing at the same venue each and every single time. And in a day and age where people are active in multiple faiths, it might be counterproductive to have the venue not only be the same venue every time, but it's in a church. And nothing against churches, nothing against churches at all. But if it's not a non-denominational church, or if it's not something that necessarily advertises community, welcome one, welcome all, then that's going to definitely be counterproductive when it comes to trying to pull in a more diverse audience. And the vision in the mission statement, they make sense, but maybe you can reach audiences more by changing the name as a thought. Now, I know some people are like, whoa, change the name. You know, sometimes you got to change the name. The Dayton Visual Arts Center, they changed their name. There's so many other places that changed their name because they wanted to have a broader outreach that still stuck to their principles and their standards. And so having it called the Bach Society is not very inviting. But I noticed that there's a repetition of the word choral. So maybe a simple name change to the Dayton Choral Society might automatically engage more outreach. And that's all I have for now.
Thank you, Erin. Gregory?
The comments I have are based on the site visit as well as the application. The site visit was the performance of Along the Silk Trail or Silk Road. And the performance did show some evidence of diversity and education in terms of allowing opportunities for young musicians to compose a work and have that work presented in the performance. There was some poetry within the performance, and it was more of a relaxed setting, but I can agree with Erin that maybe possibly rebranding to broaden the audience perspective may be helpful. Now, in the application, the samples clearly demonstrated quality of programming and performance. However, the samples that were presented could have been edited to be shortened to show more of the highlights as opposed to the entire performance. The organizational capacity, the strategic plan documents were detailed and understandable. The plan for sustainability and consulting with outside organizations would to improve their strategic plan, I thought was very insightful. And the establishment of a legacy giving program was innovative in some ways. The overall comments, I appreciated the presentation of musical works by local composers and the efforts to expand and broaden the audience in various communities around the Miami Valley. They mentioned performances of Handel's Messiah at the Arbogast Performing Arts Center in Troy, Ohio, and a goal of expanding the audience base. So it's kind of in line with Erin's comments, and her comments were very insightful.
Thanks, Gregory. I appreciate that, kind of bringing home what Erin was saying. Erin Culp?
Yeah, just a couple of additional notes. I think from an organizational capacity perspective, the application made note that it's an all volunteer corps, and they identify that, they articulate in the application that identifying a succession plan for those key roles is one of their priorities. And I think that's really important that they recognize there's risk from that volunteer core, but then they're also taking steps to address it. And then I'll echo what Gregory said about the site visit and that along the Silk Road performance, the diversity of music and I want to say the performance, if I'm remembering correctly, there were 9 different languages represented, and a number of different cultures and countries. Maybe it was 9 languages and 7 or 8 countries. It was a tremendous diversity of communities and cultures that were represented. And I thought it was a really great illustration of the ways that an organization can collaborate with other partner organizations. They had, you know, not only an international artist who came in to perform, but there was the new composer who had won the competition to compose a piece for that, and then there was collaboration also with UD and their performance group, and so I thought that was a really great illustration of the way that a performing arts organization can collaborate and be innovative in that space.
Thank you, all of you, for your review of the Bach Society. Really appreciate it, and Linda for being primary. If you all would just take a couple minutes here to take any final notes and maybe review your scores as panelists, and then we will get started with the Contemporary Dayton, otherwise known as the Co. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get us started. Erin, I want to thank you especially for being willing to take on the Contemporary Dayton as the primary reader. If you feel good to go, if you could introduce the Co and start us off on our review discussion of their application.
Okay, let me go to my notes so I don't miss a thing. Well, first of all, let me just start with the fact that I really am enjoying the new relocation. Not that I was extremely nervous about it, but I enjoyed the original location. I wasn't sure how much I would enjoy the new location until I went back in 2021. And I was really excited to go to see it because one thing that there was a lot of throughout Dayton in many ways was the announcement, the marketing of it. It was very visible. And so I was able to easily go and experience that. I really enjoyed the fact that the inaugural exhibit at the Co was very diverse. I believe the first exhibit was the late great Curtis Barnes Sr.'s, the compilation of his work, and then that was flanked with 2 other exhibits by Armstrong and I think Jeff Jones or someone else. But it was heavily based on the contributions of Curtis Barnes Sr., especially as it related to the west side of Dayton, which was extremely underserved before he and Willis Bean Davis got together and changed that narrative for the better. And so I really enjoy how they made good use of that inaugural exhibit. I was very excited to be there. And then, of course, just the way it's easily accessible. For the most part, the parking is decent. I never really have to walk too far. There's always some alley or some garage that you can get to. It's pretty accessible. And there are some things that have remained the same and other things that are some up and coming game changers. I am very, very excited about this new arts and wellness program that they're still seeking instructors for. And especially because mindfulness and mental well-being is something that is truly near and dear to me, especially as it relates to the local and underserved communities, and just all communities in general. Mindfulness and well-being is something that affects all communities, all socioeconomic backgrounds, all ages, everyone. And with suicide rates being up 48% in the past 20 years, and I know because I've done a lot of research on this, I think that this is going to be a huge game changer. The fact that they took immediately the White House's recent initiative on this, and immediately started to implement it into their own mission and their own programming, I think is a very just well sought out, well spoken statement that speaks to their mission, to the CO's mission, in their statements. Excuse me. The event that I recently attended was lovely. To sum it up in one word, very just aesthetically pleasing. Very diverse palette offerings. The space was open and easy to navigate. Let me see. And there's many aspects that I admire about the DVAC, including, their annual member show and how that brings a lot of diversity to the exhibitions and things of that nature. But one thing I do often see, because I've seen their operations over the course of years, as I've already mentioned, is a lot of artists being repeated from one year to the next. There's many artists within the Dayton community, and I think that the members show is good at kind of seeking out and discovering those people, which is probably why that's probably my favorite exhibit there. But I also feel like it shouldn't be the only method in which we see local artists. There's some very common names that are coming up in exhibitions from one year to the next, and I think that could be not to their benefit over time, even if they are very diverse, even if they fall very much in line with the mission and the statement. Considering DVAC has been around, the CO has been around for so long, it should not be so difficult to seek out and find other very well qualifying artists, instead of repeating some of the same artists in the exhibits throughout the years. Although I do see some new names, obviously some new faces, and I think it's really cool how they reach out beyond Dayton and even beyond Ohio, even beyond the Midwest, some at times, to bring in artists. But there's also, again, lots of these artists are in the community. Dayton is very art rich, and a lot of people don't realize that. Love the collaborative efforts, the annual auction, the biennial student show, I think is also a favorite of mine. I think as an educator, that's just definitely an automatic favorite of mine, gives students exposure across the state of Ohio. I think that's really great. The annual member show, I think I mentioned that, very inclusive events. More outreach to the actual community would make it even more inclusive, especially regarding reaching out to local schools, the local HBCUs and beyond. I think would speak very much more deeply to the mission and the vision of the CO. Financial management appears to be evident across the board. I'm not really seeing anything scary regarding that, but not seeing the strategic plan. I don't know if I missed it, but it looks like it's just not there. That's the only thing that gives me real true pause, especially for an organization as sophisticated as the CO. Where's the strategic plan? That's all I have for now. I digress.
Thanks, Erin. I appreciate your getting us set off like that. I really do. Let's go ahead and open it up to the rest of the panel, and feel free at this time to share your own thoughts of strengths and areas for improvement for the CO. Who would like to go first?
I'll go first. I had some of the
Okay.
same notes really that she just said. The strategic plan
Yeah.
seems to be ongoing, but there's no real update on the beginning or the completion.
Right.
And I think they need more detail on how they're going to increase revenue.
Mhm. Thank you, Linda. I appreciate that. Gregory, I see your hand is up.
I had some comments about the site visit. The space is a wonderful space for exhibitions and a community of artists. As far as the application, under the community impact, the applicant indicated many partnering collaborations with businesses of the region. But the question in my mind was, what is the economic impact for the artist involved with the organization, including data points may strengthen the statement of impact. Organizational capacity, the applicant provides a broad understanding of the organization's planning. However, specific details relevant to key individuals involved, the roles and qualifications could strengthen this section of the application, indicating milestones perhaps in the progress of primary strategic goals could enhance that section as well. The strengths of the organization's application are a detailed plan for sustainability, evidence of broad support within the region, and indications of strong financial planning in the 2024 organizational budget spreadsheet. Suggestions for improvement, many of the links to the upcoming program sections, exhibitions, programs, and development are not accessible for the application review. The organization may also consider ways to explore innovative means by which it may enhance its footprint to connect with underrepresented and underserved populations through outreach and immersive art experiences in non-traditional settings. And those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Gregory, for that. Any other comments?
I have a couple of things to add that I didn't hear from others. In the area of artistic and cultural vibrancy, I thought the application showed some really strong and specific examples of how feedback that they're garnering from the audience has impacted decisions they've made about either future exhibitions, future artists that they would highlight, or different ways to structure. I think the example I'm thinking of was a specific talk back, and they just changed the format of the room based on some feedback that they received.
Mhm.
I thought they did a really nice job in the application of articulating how they target specific backgrounds for who they want to highlight, making sure that they're focusing on that diversity. I think it's important to note the free entry being a key piece and core to their mission. And, that is a key component of ensuring accessibility to the community. So I want to make sure I'm calling that out. I have a little bit of concern as I looked at the financial narrative and then also the review. It's clear that they've had some challenges, and they mentioned in the application they've seen decreases in fundraising revenue. They have plans and goals about how to address that. They mention hiring a contractor to double grant revenue, and then a goal to triple their corporate sponsorship requests. Those are tough areas to double and triple revenue. And so I just wanted to flag that as a point of concern as I was reviewing the overall package.
Thank you, Erin. I appreciate that. Does anybody have any last thoughts to kind of wrap up the comments here on the co? You all feel pretty good with that? Okay. That formally brings this meeting to the close. For those of you who are still in the room with us, thank you for spending your day with us today as we go through the applications for the Community Arts Grant. I hope that you found this a fruitful process as you were able to witness kind of the conversation and the back and forth between our panelists as they think through their review of your application. What will happen next is described for you in the next steps, but you're always welcome to email me if you have further questions at rachel@cultureworks.org. And with that note, what needs to happen at this point is that the panelists will stay. And those of you who are in attendance right now are asked to leave so that the panelists can finalize their scores in a one last conversation. I want to thank all of you for being here. This is my first time hosting this process. It was made wonderful by my predecessor, who started this rolling and has been growing this program for years. And it was also made easier by the panelists that you were able to listen to today, who took a good deal of time to pay attention to the details of these applications. And so a huge note of gratitude to those of you who attended, as well as to the panelists themselves. So thank you to everyone in attendance. Okay, everybody, I just removed everyone else, so you can speak freely now. How was that? I hope my energy was starting to wane there all toward the end. I hope that wasn't telling. Thank you all so much. At this point, really, it's about score finalization and closing discussions with each of you. And feedback for me if you have any in the now. So let's go ahead and open it and feel free just to share your thoughts about how this went. Any questions you have for me as you finalize your scores for each of the applications, how much time you think you would like for that. I was thinking Monday would be the absolute latest that I would like to have that. So if that feels reasonable to everyone, we can settle with that. And I'm done talking now. Hi, Gregory.
Hello. I'm advocating here for K-12. My site visit to K-12 was wonderful. I really got to experience how engaged and involved they are with various aspects of the community to bring art into the community. And they were short-staffed and they do need some support, but the system that they had down was working for them, considering that they only have a few hands on board. And
yeah,
there was great interest from the public the day that I was there. So the application wasn't necessarily as detailed as it could have been, but
yeah.
I do believe that it merits support.
Okay. Thanks, Gregory, for that. Yeah, that is kind of the tricky thing with it, right? Like, we're not here as writing instructors or anything like that. You're being asked really to assess the application and your experience on these visits. And it's a tightrope a little bit. So I appreciate your reflection on that. I really do.
And I might add that, your thoughtful comments do help the applicants as they even develop other grants and of course future grants for Culture Works. So it is really beneficial, and we appreciate all the detail that was provided today. That took a lot of time and thoughtfulness.
No, you all were clearly familiar with these applications,
Mhm.
and just that takes work, it does. So deeply appreciative of you and your time. So anything else you all want to add or say, or?
I'll say one more thing, and it's really not about the applications, but about the whole process. I think what I got out of it more than anything was an education. Some of these groups I'm very familiar with, some I am not, some I like what they do, some I really don't care for. So I was trying to be objective, and I was, and judging the application and the visit and all of those things. But I learned so much that I didn't know.
Yeah.
Likewise.
I could cite many things, but I won't. But for me, that was the very best part.
Yeah, I'm so glad to hear you say that because, when you brought up like your experience at the very beginning, Linda, and you were talking about one of your visits, and I think that's something I want to reflect on as far as the role of the visit to this process, because I know there are some organizations that go out of their way to like prepare kind of a special thing for you. But really from, I think, culture, and I understand totally why you would do that, right? You it makes total sense. But I think Culture Works' idea about that visit has always been that you're experiencing the site the way any Dayton citizen would experience that site, right? And at the same time, Linda, you're kind of highlighting the fact here that you're actually going to venues that you normally would not go to. And so already there's like a difference between how you would experience and how somebody, a normal citizen of Dayton would just never think, to cross that boundary where they feel there's a boundary between them and an art form.
Mhm.
And I think what I really appreciated today about all of your reviews was really the repeated emphasis on idea or BIPOC, and what we mean by diversity as an art form. The diversity in the artists, Aaron, that you were bringing up versus, just diversity and representation of the artworks and what we really mean by these terms. And I think it's really important for the organizations and representatives of the organizations to be in the same room together and hear what each other are doing, because I'm sure that some of them are having these conversations with each other, but not in every case necessarily, right? And so I think it's good for them to be put in a position where they can be here through the whole thing, or they can just show up for their 15 minutes. But I think what really impresses me is there were a number of applicants who stayed here and were in the room for the whole thing. And so what they're hearing is not just your conversations within one particular application, but they're hearing kind of the relationships between different organizations. They're hearing how one organization handles diversity versus how they, I don't think many people would actually think about offering babysitting.
Yeah.
Way to draw in an audience. That actually was something that really stuck out to me. Now that's a small thing, but that really draws in a rather particular audience, right, Aaron?
Not a small thing.
No, it's not a small thing.
It's not small. That's a huge thing.
That's a huge thing.
So
Yeah.
big that it's easily overlooked, because some people feel like, oh, you're a parent now, just stay at home with the kids. And that's not fair.
Yeah.
First of all, and I think the kids just being able to be outside of their home in a different environment, engaging with other kids, I think is just very special.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that.
And the
Yeah.
thing about that particular program that's so amazing is it's babysitting, but it's not just babysitting, right? They're giving the kids the opportunity to explore the performing arts and explore being an actor themselves, which I think is so exciting. It's not just
Yeah.
like, we'll keep your kid
Right.
alive for a couple of hours, right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Like when you
So
go to
that it is
IKEA and you just
extending
send
the
them to the
programming
playroom. Right.
and engaging youth in a way that is so innovative. And as a
Mhm.
parent, I can't wait for my kids to be old enough to take advantage of that.
Absolutely. I also wonder,
Yeah.
like, who's watching the kids, like, not that I don't trust it, but like, are these other artists, are these interns, are these local students? Like, are they students that are seeking higher ed, or not higher ed, but what do you call it? The primary education degrees, like who are these people? I think I didn't even think about that question until just now, but I think it's just so fascinating, like something so simple, you know. I don't know. I think it's really cool.
Yeah. So.
I want to just echo also what Linda said. I have found this experience to be really fascinating and interesting. And similarly, there are organizations in this group that I probably never would have engaged with outside of this process. And everyone in my life knows I won't shut up about any of them now.
I
And
love that.
and I think the thing in reading the application that's been so interesting is some of the organizations, like by nature of their mission, they are innovative in the art that they do, right? If your focus is contemporary art or modern dance, you are a little bit more in the innovative space. And so looking at the way like the Art Institute addressed the area of innovation, or the way that Discover Classical addresses the area of innovation, if your target, you know, genre of music was
By
completed
nature.
200 years ago.
Right.
And so that has just been really interesting to look at the different ways that the different organizations have addressed those various issues. And yeah, it's been really fascinating for me. And thank you for the opportunity.
No, I'm so pleased that all of you, and I'm sad that Colleen wasn't able to actually be in the room, but just the fact that she took the time to make that recording,
Yeah.
I mean, was just huge. I feel like it really spoke to her commitment to the process. She was determined. She was determined to get that to me the other day. So it was really lovely. It was just lovely. So one question that I have for each of you, if you don't mind thinking about this, is I like the idea of, and Lisa, this is an idea I haven't presented to you yet, so
Okay.
I might get but you know, every year there's a call for panelists, and you know, this was a group originally of 8, and we wound up with 4. You know, 4 people were actually able to be here, you know, and 6 who are actually able to make it through, you know, and we really want to make sure that we have like 5 to 8 people on a panel. So we made that. But I really like the idea of coming in of sort of finding innovative ways to recruit people from the community in Dayton. And one of the ideas I had was, in addition to just sending out an email, if we had testimonies from panelists themselves who spoke just briefly about their experience of being on a panel, that your all's word would count way more than mine, and because you would actually have gone through the process. And so, you know, obviously I still need to hash this out with Lisa about
I
whether
think it's a great idea.
yeah, about how we would do this and the logistics of all of this. But my question is just, would any of you be willing to do that? Because what we like to do is have panelists who are able, Gregory knows this, right? Panelists who are able to come back a few years in a row and kind of work their way up to a chair. I really wanted to lead this year and kind of keep us moving with the time and all of that, just so I could learn it. But typically there's actually another person in the room who's been on the panel who really manages the meeting, and I would just be there, Karen would just be there for like logistical stuff, like
Correct.
cameras don't turn on, right? So I'm kind of wondering, what your thoughts are on that, if you'd be willing, if you're open to these kinds of conversations, when it comes time for me to start thinking about recruiting for next year.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't see why not. I think that's a really good idea, maybe, and especially for people that are maybe being approached about being a panelist for the first time and they want to know more about what that means.
Yeah,
Last year was my first time serving on a panel after having received a grant in previous years. And so even though, I managed to secure a grant because I easily fit the criteria and my goals and my mission and my work fitted, it was different than serving on a panel and looking at other people whose missions are way outside of mine,
right.
So
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
it might be helpful because for people like me who are not interested in certain things that I will not say, but certain things I was just like, Lord, take
That's
me.
very diplomatic of you, Erin.
Yeah, I'm like,
No, I mean, Linda, I really loved what you said, and I'm sorry, Erin, because I just cut you
yeah.
off. But I really loved, Linda, when you said this was an education. I love that, and honestly, that comment is what gave me this idea.
Well, thank you.
So I bow. Sorry, Erin, if you want to keep going. I know I cut you off.
Oh, no, it's fine. I was just saying that because, you're going to be dealing with looking at organizations that just are not very sexy to you, so
Right.
it's like understanding how to be savvy through that and looking past your own interests and into the overall big picture, I think is something that would be helpful with.
Yeah.
Rachel, I have one question. When we're finished with our scoring and we say, okay, I'm done, you can have it. Do we need to tell you that? And can you just get it from the computer? Or do we need to click on some button that says send it to Rachel?
Mm.
I'll be able to go in there and just see if it's finished, it'll say 100%. And if when you're looking at the front page, where you can see all of them listed, you should be able to see 100%, 87%. And a lot of times it'll say something like 87% if you finish the review, but you haven't actually submitted the review. And I can do that for you. So what I'll do is I'm going to take tomorrow to kind of go through and just see what I have from everybody. And if I see anything missing, you'll get an email from me tomorrow. Just letting you know what I don't have. And then we can just have a phone conversation with each other, or we can do another, Zoom call like we did, or Teams call, if you want, where I can kind of see it. What I don't want to happen is that I assume you're finished when you're not, and so I submit it on your behalf, and then there's still things you wanted to say, because that would impact the final score, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So, yeah, so I guess short answer would be it may be helpful if you actually just watch for that email, because I may double check with you on things.
All right.
Okay.
Mhm.
Gregory, it looked like before you were going to say something.
Yeah, just a quick comment on the testimonials and calls for
Yeah.
This experience for me has really broadened my understanding of what's offered in the community in terms of the arts.
Yeah.
And it wasn't something that I previously knew about. We're in our own space, our own niche, but being a part of the panel has introduced me to places and people who are passionate about the arts. And I think that that is a strong selling point for Culture Works and for Montgomery County Arts and Cultural District, because there's a lot of behind the scenes administration that goes on that, people aren't aware of, they don't think about. but your efforts are shining, and that should be shown throughout the community. And I applaud you, Lisa. I applaud you, Rachel, because in all of the members of Culture Works, it's a truly passion and a work that is very much needed and received in our community.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I appreciate that you said that as well. I think one of the things that I really like about the idea of it could even be like a compilation video with a number of you kind of talking about your experiences as a panelist. It could be for multiple grants, because I know some of you have done that with different grants that we've offered before, where you were a reviewer for those panels, and that kind of thing. And I think one of the things that I love, I mean, it's even in, as I said, the title of this grant, that this is a community arts grant. And I really like that about CultureWorks's role in Dayton. And it seems to me that by your all's testimonials would really communicate to the region at large that it is the community's organization and the community's voice
Correct.
that is
Well said.
responding to these applications. I don't know that people always realize that, or somehow it gets lost in the messaging somehow, maybe, I'm not sure. But I think this would be a wonderful way, and so I'll just tell the four of you. And Linda, please know I'm going to be communicating this to Colleen as well. Watch for my email. Where I bring this idea back up again. I'm really swamped right now, just with a number of different grants in addition to this one that are in process, and some scholarships that are in process. But I think once I've got my feet back on the ground, I'm going to come back around to this conversation, because this has been a learning curve for me as well. And just listening to you all kind of go back and forth, and walk that fine line between talking about the organization and the application and the visit, and knowledge that you have because you've been frequenting them, knowledge that you don't have because they're outside of your comfort zone, and there's a lot to weigh in what you're doing. And I just want all of you to know I've really appreciated the thoughtfulness that you brought into this entire process. I've learned a ton just working with you.
This has been great. Educational is definitely the word.
Yeah.
It is definitely the word. So, but you guys, I'm so sorry. I have to go because I got to run across town now.
I do too.
No, you're
Yeah.
good. It is
All
2
right.
o'clock. We are officially finished.
Okay.
I know people have to take off. I'm going to be the last to go, just in case anybody wants to hang in for one last word. But thanks to all of you. And Lisa, I really appreciate that you stayed in here the whole time.
Oh, this is a very special day. I just feel I have to be
She was
part of
like,
it.
Rachel, I'll be in there. I'm your support. And I was like, thank you, Lisa.
All right.
Oh, and Rachel, congratulations on making it through your first one. I think you did a great job too, because you were like really.
Well, I just want to say, I mean, I was a professor at Northern Kentucky University for over a decade, right?
That's what I heard.
Yeah. So, I'm not afraid of talking in front of groups, and I've got Zoom down, as we all sadly did when we
I could be
COVID, but like never for 5 hours straight, you all.
Really? Oh, wow.
No. I mean, a night class is 3 hours. This was like,
You're right. 5 hours. Yeah. Oh, also, I wanted to tell you guys that I think your system and your setup is very well organized. I like it.
Thank you. I think the major glitch was that people didn't get to see your faces, but and I
kind of like it. That way, if they don't like our feedback, they don't know what we look like. No, I'm joking.
You can all feel safer now.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, you guys.
Everybody. Thank you so
I'm gonna
much.
take off.
Take
Thank you,
care.
everyone.
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks all.
Thank you, Rachel.
Oh,
You made a
Gregory, I was
difference.
so glad to, you are so good. You are such a good reviewer. I feel like, you really were the person who balancing between, talking about the organization, but yes, but then you would always bring it back to the application and talk about what they had in the application to kind of back up what you were saying. It was gorgeous, gorgeous.
Thank you. I appreciate that because I'm not sure sometimes. I'm like, well, I can only work with what I've seen.
Yeah,
The application, and I
that's
didn't
right,
get too generalized with it. So
right.
I appreciate that comment.
No, seriously, an additional caveat here, there's a part of me that wants to clip out some of your review from today. Just so people can actually, future panelists who haven't done it before can hear your magic. Because you really do consistently go back to the application, and it's important because at the end of the day, we're reviewing an application for grant money,
Right.
not just giving them feedback about their role in the community. You know what I mean?
Yes.
We are doing that, but also like there are funds that they're applying for.
Yes.
And so that's why I feel like it's important to go back to the application because it objectifies that process in a way. Whereas if your reviewer is just talking about the organization itself the whole time, then it starts to seem not objective anymore.
Right.
So
Right.
no, I really appreciate it. I really do. You were excellent.
Well, thank you. I that's encouraging. And I've learned from this experience. This was my first community arts grant.
Yeah.
Yeah. So moving forward, if I'm invited to future panels, I
Of
think
course you will
I
be.
will have a little bit more confidence in
Good.
presentation.
Yeah. No, you were excellent. I really appreciated it. I really did.
Well, thank you.
All right.
A wonderful rest of your day.
You as well. Take care. I'll see you next time.
Okay.
All right. Bye.
Bye.